Welcome to the Thornbury Vintage Tractor Club. This is the home of our Rural Heritage Centre. Hi, I'm Fraser, and this is our collection at Thornbury, which is the birthplace of farming in Southland. In this bay is our fencing bay, and so it describes different types of fencing. Very early fences were made out of waste wood like this. So this is bog pine that were then stacked up, and it created a fence by just stacking it up in a big heap like it is described in the photo. Other means of fencing was stacking sods one above the other to create a fence, but more recently we had the old trusty number 8 wire, and that's still a staple of today and used for all sorts of things, and it's a bit of a slang with farming, number 8 wire technology, everything is bolted or tied together with number 8 wire. So yeah, the old staple.
Hi, my name's Tony Strang. My ancestors came here, and officially it's 1862, but probably Samuel Strang was here prior to the surveyor and had certainly explored the area in that time. When his brother William and his wife Elizabeth arrived, Captain Howell sent his men down into the swampy part to build a sod hut for my ancestors. Following the importation of the first animals into the province through the port of Riverton, the farming began under an ad hoc arrangement with Captain Howell and land that he had acquired through his marriage to the Maori princess. After that came the series of run holders, but as the land was surveyed, the big migration of settlers came to this area in the early 1860s. The punchline in the development of districts is summed up in the words, somewhere to learn, somewhere to worship, somewhere to relax, somewhere to gather and to trade. And this happens to be the local district of Thornbury, and these small pictures around the outside depict the activities that took place here through the 1900s. Thornbury developed around the junction in the railway line, and so here we have the early rail headquarters, which was virtually on this property, on the edge of this property. And the lines split here come from Invercargill and going in one part to Tuatapere and the other part to Wairio and on to the coal mines at Nightcaps and Ojai. Interesting aspect of the railway was that there was a triangle here for turning the train, and people don't normally understand how a train can be turned, but if you've got one line coming up here and then it's backed up here, the train can take off on the triangle. Telling the story of Southland, wherever possible we've used local images and local stories, and in the dairy section, of course, Thornbury was a big hub of dairy farming, so the milking plant has come off a farm just down the road at a Taito bush. We've used illustrations of a local man milking the cow by hand, and then a local woman in the cow shed, and the early dairy factory, which was at Thornbury here, predating the present factory. Predating the later factory. And those factories predominantly made cheese for export to the UK. But the dairy story, of course, is in many parts. It carries on to the production of butter, and most of that in latter years took place in Invercargill. There's other aspects to the dairy industry that are very, very fascinating, and that is the story of the Highlander brand, which started under private ownership at Underwood. Later years it was taken over by Nestlé, international Swiss company, and over the fullness of time that was transferred to Auckland, and it has become an international brand, the Highlander brand, which started at Underwood. The last can of Highlander milk my wife bought came from Spain, an international brand. Another very interesting aspect was the collection of the whey from the dairy factories and taken to the lactose plant at Edendale, and the products and the byproducts that came out of that factory could fill a book. We've just used the bone-handled knives, but I believe it was also an ingredient in explosives and other things. It's just a whole story in that in itself.
I'm Colin Hitchcock. I was brought up on a dairy farm with a cow shed that looked very similar to this. There was 8 bales. Grandad was one of the biggest dairy suppliers to the Wrightsbush Dairy Company, and then when it closed, to Nestles at Underwood. And Grandad's bale was always the one under the radio, so he could listen to the archers. Nobody dare milk cows there apart from Grandad.
Further to the photos that we chose in that display with it being local content, this photo here is particularly special to me because this photo is a photo of my family farm. Dad brought this farm in the 1960s, but back in 1949 Mr. Norman Moffat took this photo, and the Moffat family gave this photo to our family because it was very special to them, and they used to call the farm the camp, and then therefore because it was separate from their original farm, and so we decided that we would call our farm the camp in recognition of the Moffat family. So again, we just loved the way the oats were sweeping and just the whole image, and Jackie, our designer, has done a lovely job of blowing it up and we put it on the wall, and I'm quite proud of that. We're getting at the end of our display now, and we decided that we needed to have some sort of tribute to the shearing industry, and so we've got 2 very old presses, a Regan Grey on this side, and a guy turned up with this old press, and we just loved the look of it. It was very old and rustic, and we've tidied it up, and it's now in our display. So here we have different methods of, from the early blade shears to the very old shearing hand pieces, the Kiwi shearing machine, and the lovely photo in the background.
A very important part of this project has been the wording that has followed through, and we were just so fortunate that an old school friend of mine by the name of John Gordon retired to Otautau, and he's written the wording through this display. But equally fortunate are we the fact that after he passed we were given this photograph, and it's more of a high country scene, but it's John to a T with his dogs and his personality. It just so happens on the film that we've got of the Best of the Dog Show, John refers to this particular photograph, presumably taken in his home, and refers to the dogs and the whole scene in the rural sector. John always believed that the dogs were just a tool that enabled a New Zealand farmer to handle larger numbers of livestock.
When you come out of our display, you come into the shed full of tractors and other equipment used in the years over farming. This is only one of our sheds. We have a dedicated steam shed with traction engines and various steam engines, and we also have 3 other sheds across the road. One with everything in that shed's well over 100 years old. There's one shed that's basically all into horse-drawn stuff, and then the Patterson shed is all about old displays of old Thornbury houses, shops, hotel scenes, etc. So there's plenty here for the public to visit.
So this is where the whole story began, not just for this museum and this club, but for the whole of New Zealand's vintage scene in the farm machinery. When the local builder found this tractor on the banks of the Mataura River about to be used for bank protection, and it became a must-have. And following his enthusiasm in bringing that home and getting it restored with the help of the local blacksmith, other people gathered up so much heritage and put it more into storage. These things initially were more toys to be taken in street parades, but now they're the foundation for what is one of the better collections of very old tractors and machinery that is in the public eye anywhere. And I mean anywhere in the world. This is one of the better collections that the public has access to.
Well, here we are in a special corner. This corner was donated to us by Pat Turnbull, wife of the famous Derek Turnbull. He was the old man that used to do all the running, and so they farmed in many different places throughout Southland. And Pat came to us and said that she had this a few things that we wanted for the garden, that she had a few things in her garden that she thought that we might like. But then when we saw the rest of her collection, we thought yes, we would like that, and so she kindly donated it to us. So this is an area where our lady folk can come and view all the things of yesteryears, and so this is just a lovely collection of household equipment, all the way from a collection of bottles on that wall to Derek's wool collection in behind the glass there. So it's a very special corner for us.